Okay, people, welcome back to another get-together. Wise Wild Women Exposing Evil, myself and Heather Brown. This is Angela's CACHES, the word of their testimony, and I always try and ground it with the serious things, because we do have a giggle, you have to endure, but I want to ground it with the seriousness of the fact that Heather's son, Biniam Brown, was stolen from her at the age of 6. And when he was due to age out of so-called care of the state, he was disappeared, and she is still looking for him. He's now aged 25. So if anybody, particularly given that we know a tactic for secreting victims away so that they can't speak out is to put them in secure mental health institutions, many of them run by private companies now for profit with not fit for purpose at all. But if any staff members of secure unit mental health institutions in the UK, if you know of Biniam Brown, even if his name has been changed, we just ask that you get in touch with Heather Brown or myself. And for myself, I have to keep making myself stand up again to fight my court cases. My sister, I believe, was murdered. It was covered up. The coroner, the autopsy, the inquest was an absolute sham. I was advised if I wasn't happy, get a judicial review. I had catastrophic surgery at the Mater Hospital in Ireland, which I believe was intended to actually finish me off. It didn't, but I was led a merry dance with that and ran out of time for taking any action against them. They took almost the entire statutory 2 years to do an internal investigation, made a few recommendations, and then told me to pop along, said they'd learned their lessons and would be changing a few things, and that was that. It was just horrific. And, so many other things. My sister's will was executed by my younger sister, and the last thing my sister had said is, I know Kathy and Anne-Marie are financially abusive, and I know the family is toxic and controlling and abusive. And, she had revelation of the truth, but it was too late for her. She died. But she would, as they say, tell in her grave if she knew that Anne-Marie and Kathy administered her $1 million+ estate, and did so the way they've done everything, the way they've, not Kathy so much. Kathy's just the fall guy that, rubber stamps everything Anne-Marie and mother cook up. But the same way Anne-Marie's, gathered up the family dynasty property and everything, and has got her eye on the final 4 acres as well. It's quite devastating. So many smaller injustices too, but as I say, I'm planning on going home for 3 months to sort all these things out, or at least get them actioned. So that's our personal story. We're not just getting together for a gossip. We actually have paid a huge price in life to get to that place where freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, So that's the premise from which we whistleblow. So in our last get-togethers, we had talked about we are not going to focus entirely on trolling sites and all the rest of it, but given that they seem to be funded, given that they are absolutely illegal, brutal, defamatory, slanderous, libelous, and have been responsible. They boast that around my work there have been 2 possible murders, 2 sections, and 10 arrests. Well, rather than trying to pin that on me, I think they should take a long, hard look in the mirror, because the level of work and the kind of disable and destroy or disable and discredit work they do is shameful. So we will address a little bit about that, because that is the new terrorism in this day and age of cyberspace. we will address some of that, and there are actions being taken. So the thing about James Hind and Julian Vane, are they one and the same person? Heather had been adamant that they weren't, but actually after further research is saying that the James Hind one does seem to be a fake
Doesn't seem to exist.
persona.
Seems the person doesn't exist, can't be traced. An actual entity, actual person who is James Hind, I think does not exist.
Mm.
And I think that the way he goes on and on about the Order of the Nine Angles, the Order of the Nine Angles, the guy who ran it, or the name that was put up for the person who ran it, was suspected to be a few people using the one name, using one pseudonym. It wasn't one person. So I think that this James Hind and Satanic Voices, Satanic
Views. Well, the one that overtly is responsible for Satanic Views and connected to the Hoaxted Twitter account is Julian Vane.
Well, that's what somebody else has been telling me as well.
Yeah.
Not Chris Costa, somebody else.
Okay.
Who has nothing to do with this Chris Costa person.
Okay.
Who knows Julian Vane. This person knows Julian Vane and knows something about Julian Vane being linked to child sex abuse in the West Country.
Okay, wow.
So this person also says that the one called Justin Sanity is an American person called Lucian Greaves.
Oh, that rings a bell.
Yes, well, yeah, because Lucian Greaves is from the Temple of Satan in America.
Right, very good. Well done.
So also on the James Hind profile, he doesn't want to network and make friends with other Satanists or anybody. He only wants people who want to join in his fight, primarily against the Sabine McNeil, because he's got to be in his bonnet about her.
Yeah.
Because he writes, "Fuck Sabine McNeil, vote Brexit." And somebody asked him, do you just want to vote Brexit because she wants to stay in the EU? And he said yes, because she wants to stay in the EU in order to fulfill her personal agenda.
Okay, well,
so what kind of obsession is that, to vote a certain way?
Yeah, no, it's like they're obsessed with me. They get a bee in their bonnet. I think they're either very sick psychopaths who just get obsessive and stalk.
No, they're actual Satanists. No,
yeah, well, a Satanist can be a psychopath too. I would assert they probably are both.
The one called Pallas Athena is also somebody who used to be on...
Let me write this down. Say the name.
Pallas Athena. P-A-L-L-A-S. Athena.
Okay. Now, Pallas Athena, yes?
Wrote things for lightforcenetwork.com, which doesn't have a secure certificate, so you can't actually access it from Google. But it's still on the listings, but it doesn't allow you to access it because the certificate is not secure. It uses an obscure type of certificate.
Yeah.
So you can't actually read what she's written. I might try reading it from someplace else to see what she's writing, or she or he.
Right.
On the James Hind Facebook page, it says, if you don't want to fight against the Satan hunters, don't contact me, don't try to friend me, because I don't want you.
Yes.
So he's not out to network. This profile has been set up specifically to fight the so-called Satan hunters.
Yeah, and he's trying to...
I don't believe he exists.
Yeah, no, I think, and that would, and I'm perfectly willing to be wrong, I always say this, that would line up with Chris Costa's assertion and other people's intel.
Yeah. Other people saying
a few people now saying that he is indeed Julian Vane. Now,
I think
angles, I just want to update you a bit on the 9 angles. I'll post in this video description. I did a 3-hour interview of the head of a global Satanist church based in America, calling himself Reverend Dr. Pope Robbie Frez. And when I was working with Hampstead Research, they asked me to interview him because he contacted them and said, not all satanic orders practice ritual abuse of children, and I want to be your expert and give you some intel on who I think is running the Hampstead cult. So the 9 angles was also alleged. So I'll write myself a note to put down the Robbie Fraser interview.
Well, the 9 angles doesn't exist anymore. It disbanded. They were all quite old.
Yeah, that may be, but there may be some young whippersnappers that, you know, calling themselves Satanists that think they've taken on. There's another one called, it's done by Russell Burton, a brilliant film called The Ninth Circle. And I'll put that link up as well, and I strongly advise people to look at it because there was strong indication that the cult operating out of Hampstead was 9 angles.
I don't think so.
Or calling themselves that, whether they're the original.
Yeah, maybe to scare the shit out of people, because the 9 angles were scary people. They were physically very, very fit. They were extremely violent. They were neo-Nazis. They were aligned with Combat 18. They were part of Combat 18. Combat 18 is a very dangerous organisation.
Now, I want you to tell me about Combat 18.
Well, Combat 18 is a far-right organisation based on a lot of what they think and what they've, because those people I had run into in Northern Ireland were in Combat 18.
Wow.
Yeah, Jim Spence.
The U.D.A.
What?
Were they connected to the U.D.F.?
U.D.A. and U.D.F. U.V.F. There is no U.D.F. U.D.A. and U.V.F.
Okay.
And they were far-right extremists, much like Johnny A.D., because Johnny A.D. was well, he would have liked to have thought he was connected to Combat 18, but I think they would probably say ha 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 more ha 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 at that.
Okay.
But
which the 9 angles, you know, might say the same about the Hampstead cult.
I think they probably would actually.
Yeah, but
because the 9 angles don't waste their time and energy on Facebook or on little blogs, you know, guffawing at people. Because the fact is that they just guffaw at anybody who appears on this video. They started on me. I had nothing to do with Hampstead. I haven't been to Hampstead in about 30 years. Nothing to do with Hampstead. So they started on me, and then they started going on about the Belfast Council, saying that I owe 65 grand. I don't owe anything because Mr. Justice. If they think Anna Powerfully was right, what she said, then the same must go for Mr. Justice Sales when he said that I do not owe any money to Belfast Council. They were the authors of their own misfortune. They wrote the email to me. They put their spreadsheet on the email to me. I did not ask them to or prompt them to or tell them to. And they sent this email, and then they began threatening me. He said he'd never heard such a ridiculous scam in his life. And he said that they could go back to Northern Ireland. They could do what they wanted. They could come back to London anytime they wanted, but they would not be getting 1 penny out of me, is what he told them.
Excellent.
So if they like so much what Anna Powerfully says, then they'll have to love what Mr. Sales has said, haven't they?
Yeah, they can't have their cake and eat it. Yeah.
Mr. Justice Sales is a higher judge than Anna Powerfully.
Yeah, yeah.
So they must have to love what he says. They can't like what one of them says and not like what the other one says.
No, I think a lot of what they operate on, and as well, when you say that they can't possibly be 9 angles or Combat 18 because...
They're not Combat 18.
No, just hear me out. Because you and I are in our 50s, things have changed. So where terrorism would be, you'd go and beat the crap out of somebody or you'd burn their house down or whatever. In this day of cyberspace, the biggest enemy they have is the internet, because we can get the word out.
No, Combat 18 would still come and burn your house down and beat the crap out of you. They wouldn't bother with the internet.
Well, all right, you may or may not be right. They may do both sometimes, but you know, given that the other strand is cowardice because none of them use their real name or show their faces. So then, what better way for a coward to still exercise their love of intimidation and terror and destruction, but just in a more modern way online? But anyway, we don't have to agree on that, but I'm just saying...
Well, C18 don't care if you know who they are, because there's an amount of bravado with them. And they don't care. Who knows? I mean, there's been people in the British Army who've been put in jail in Northern Ireland for having Combat 18 literature. They are that dangerous that if you have their literature over there, you go to jail, whether you're in the army or whether you're not. So there can...
But there is that same kind of bravado with these trolls, because even those that were named by the children, and there were over 100 people I named, I think, maybe 70 were named and 153 implicated, but even those that were named, thus far, they are laughing because there have been no arrests, there has been no investigation, there have been no forensic examinations of the alleged crime scenes, there have been no confiscations of their technology. So where they boast that, oh, 2 dead, 2 Section 10 arrested, that's on their head. And the fact that they boast about that and try to deflect the responsibility for that indicates a certain level of bravado, like we're untouchable, we've got the government behind us, we've got the, you know, we've got the royal family behind us, we've got the CIA behind us, we've got people in high places. It's like Jimmy Savile.
Well, somebody said
that used to say, I'm untouchable.
Well, somebody said that this just insanity, this Lucian Greaves, that he's possibly paid by the CIA to run the Temple of Satan, but I don't know if that is so or not, because I don't know why the CIA would want you to run the Church of...
Oh, they're connected. They're absolutely connected.
The Temple of Satan and the CIA.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is the, you know, on a sort of wider scale, the New World Order is intended to be run by Satanists. It's a whole satanic agenda that's been rolling out.
The New World Order and the Aryan ascendancy, this is all part of the 9 angles of Combat 18's agenda.
Well, then that does indicate to me that it is connected. Tell me what you know of the older ones, the ones that you said would be in wheelchairs by now.
Well, the ones that set it up, they're very old. They started in, I think, about the 1960s.
Do you know any names?
Oh, their names are online. They're various names and they use aliases. But the one at the top of it, the alias that was used for the person allegedly running it, was thought to be a pseudonym that was used by a few people, not just by one person. It was a pseudonym. Yeah. And I think that's the same with this James Hines.
It's the same MO. It's the same MO because Ricky Dearman, if Snake Logan and Sam Best and all those pathetic, they may have been, as you think, they may have been Shiva Burton acting as his love-struck admin. But if he's running some of those fake profiles, it's long been established that that one person is using multiple profiles, and there's forensic evidence of that, where within a 20-minute period of time, there would be 2 minutes on each fake profile, and they'd post exactly the same thing in multiple places. And
see, with this James Hines, I would have thought if you were starting, because he reckons that he was party to setting up the London chapter of the Church of Satan. Well, I think he must be very new, because the Church of Satan operated in London and in Brighton and in Folkestone, operated since the 1970s, and it called itself Finbar International, the International Church of Satan. So they already were practicing, and I happen to know they existed in the early 90s. In 1991 they existed in central London, because they tried marauding into the Aetherius Society. They sent this person called William. He was a very peculiar character. He used to run around in little small shorts and shave his whole body. He was very strange indeed. He was South African, and he looked like a Boer, but he tried to tell us he was from Blackburn, Lancashire, and this South African accent, he was very, very strange. But he went to the Aetherius Society, who were mainly middle-aged, middle-class people who believe in UFOs and in the Master Aetherius and various other things. They're really quite harmless. And he tried taking over, but they weren't long of actually getting hold of him and physically ejecting him from their temple on the Fulham Road.
Wow.
This William was mixed up with Combat 18, and he used to go on about the 9 angles and various things, but we know that he was linked. He was from the Church of Satan in London. So the Church of Satan hasn't just simply now gotten a chapter in London. It's always had it.
Yeah, and we can make. I'm going to make contact with this Robbie Frez again and ask him for the inside track on the London scene with Satanism. I don't.
It's been going on for decades in London.
Yeah, that's right. So I think we can make inquiries on that, definitely. And what else with regard to that? Yeah, there's some researchers anonymously have contacted me and said that they are working on a website to get the lowdown on who has been running riot and causing havoc and devastating people's lives through this sad little blog and YouTube channel. So that's probably enough on that, unless we want to.
Well, I don't really care what they say or publish about me because they're quite irrelevant to me. I couldn't care less. They're of no relevancy to me. Yeah. But I think that if he was, as he says, setting up the London chapter of the Church of Satan, and if he was so high up in it, he would be wanting to, befriend a lot of people, to recruit a lot of people. Yeah. He wouldn't just be saying he only wants people who want to,
as he calls it, Satan hunt, like get
fight against Satan hunters.
Yeah. So that's an attempt to popularize and normalize Satanism, like, oh, look at these nasty Satan hunters.
Yeah.
I'm proud. If you want to call me a Satan hunter, I'm proud of that. I'm proud.
Yeah, but do you think he would want to befriend everybody and anybody to get them to...
Yeah, so it's clearly not a recruitment drive, and it's clearly not, it's just...
Well, because there is no new chapter of the Church of Satan, because the Church of Satan has existed. When I had the run-in with them in 1991 with this William and this woman called Pamela, firstly, I was the friend of the Pamela, and the next thing the William befriended her, and she was, she turned around and she said to me one day, she said, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and this thing came out of the mirror and entered her body through her solar plexus. This is what she was saying, that this dark entity had entered her body.
It's quite possible.
Oh, and she said to me, I said, are you sure you weren't dreaming? She says, no, I wasn't dreaming. I said, well, she said to me, what does this mean? I said, oh, I don't know. And I was quickly looking for an exit to get away from it because she's got some, she said to me, when it entered her body, she felt the power of evil going through her and that she could do any evil to anybody.
Sounds like demon possession, which is what it's all about. It's all,
Well, they recruited her and she had some sort of breakdown, whatever they did with her, she went mental.
Yeah.
She went through Lally. She got plenty of money off the state when she went through Lally, but she went through Lally.
Yeah, that's quite.
And running around to the Catholic Church, and she was saying that I had put a curse in her. I had done nothing to the stupid cow.
Yeah, no, when they mess with demons, what they don't realise is that those demons have no loyalty to them whatsoever. They are just a vessel to be used.
Oh, I reckon it was the William, because he was trying to mix himself up with every group he could find in order to cause instability in them. The Aetherius Society were not long of actually booting him out. And the Pamela, because you couldn't tell her anything, she's blah, 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 big mouth. And the William had told her that he had been to the Aetherius Society and he'd spoken to them about me. So she blabbed to me, oh, he went to the Aetherius Society about it. So if I went to the Aetherius Society and they told me what he'd been saying, they told me he'd been saying I was a witch and that also I was this thing Satan hunter, and that I had special powers and I was the real McCoy. I was actually, but I mean, he was barking, you could tell. He used to go to Safeway down in Fulham Road dressed in tiny little, like George Best's football shorts, small little shorts, and his whole body shaved from head to toe, and flip-flops, and he'd walk about like this in the shorts, nothing but the shorts, no top, nothing. So these shorts and a pair of flip-flops, he looked ridiculous, and he was as orange as they come.
I'll just put a couple of pictures up of there's Reverend Anthony Pike. I'll just put a couple of... Oh, it's somebody whose newsletter I'm on. He's distantly related to Albert Pike.
Who's Albert Pike?
Oh, you know, of the Freemasons. Albert Pike, he was a Satanist and he, you know, big in the Freemasons. But this Anthony Pike wouldn't conform, he wouldn't toe the family line, and so he's been persecuted, and he actually lives in India. He actually went to, I think he was originally from Harrow.
Oh, here we go, just a minute. This is the weird callers again.
Okay.
Yes. It's not going to work, isn't that right? Okay. Yes. 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 No. No. Yeah, outside. Yes.
Sorry, people will resume shortly.
Yes. Yes. Oh, well, I can't have it, so I'll just keep what I've got then. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's just a few pictures of the, are you okay?
Yeah, it's British Gas. They just want to know about smart meters because my meter is not going to work after August because they need to replace it with a smart meter.
Yeah.
Now they're saying, well, they're saying because I have got economy 7,
yeah,
but they won't be able to put the smart meter. So she's put me on a list. Well, that's the story of my life. I'm on everybody's list, including the Satanist list.
Well, the longer you can keep away from the smart meters, the better, because they are an absolute conductor for waves. They're a tool towards surveillance. They're bad news. I used to be involved, well, I still am a little bit, with the fighting the water tax in Ireland and the smart meters. Dennis O'Brien made a fortune, and he bought loads of smart meters that were rejects. He bought them from the German government to enforce their installation in Ireland as water meters, and they've been discovered to be horrendously unhealthy, dangerous.
Oh, well, my meters are outside, so it's fine. I mean, my meters are not in the house.
Even outside, trust me, I can, you know, if you're interested, I can look up, or you can just look up smart meters and do a little bit of research. They're bad news.
She tells me I can't have one anyway because I have
good. That's
economy 7.
So this is Julian Vane. I'm just going to run through a few pictures. This is him.
Yeah, I've seen these. I know about this.
Right. Okay. Well, just for the sake of people that haven't seen them, that's him. That's him on a good day. He doesn't usually look.
No, he looks a bit tatty. I noticed.
And then there's the infamous one where he's probably taken it down now, but there was one of Russell Brand at a mutual.
Oh, yes.
That's more like what he looks like now.
Yeah, Chris Costa's got that on her website.
Yeah, yeah. And Magic Works and all the rest of it. That's more what he looks like now. I mean, you can't mess around with the dark side indefinitely and not have it ravage you from the inside.
What's he got a picture of the devil tarot card for? Because the devil tarot card doesn't represent the actual devil. So why has he got a picture of the devil tarot card?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not expert enough on that kind of thing.
It represents addiction.
Addiction?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
interesting.
can read tarot cards. I learned to read tarot cards in Ireland as a teenager.
Yeah, I used to read them and runestones, but I burned them all when I got clear on wanting to break ties with the dark side. I burned all my stuff. So, but I was familiar. Runestones I used to read, and tarot cards. Let's have a look here. Now, let's see. I don't think there's going to be anything on James Hind, because as you say...
It doesn't exist.
James Hind...
The persona exists, but I don't believe the actual person exists.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, these are business people, James. These are not the James Hind we're looking for, because there is no James Hind that we're looking for.
No, I think you might be right. Car wow. So that's some car type person. And then see if there was any other one. No, but no, listen, it's I'm not directly involved with the things going on. But I've certainly handed in a lot of my harassment. Now who's that?
Well, that woman, Bridie, had
Dr. James Hind. Look at this, Dr. James Hind.
Well, he's a doctor. Look, there is his equipment behind him.
Yeah.
And this is Dr. James Hind from about hundreds of years ago. I don't think that's who we're looking for. Look, Captain James.
No, so I think that's enough. And
he's probably stolen the name from these old documents.
And as always, you know, there's an open invitation to any of these people to come on the show if they're not cowards, and if they've genuinely think they've got, you know, something to say and something to defend. Come and show your face with your real name. Simple.
Well, Shira Blurtall has got plenty to say, hasn't she? Suddenly.
She hasn't contacted me about coming on the show.
She said she's not. She said that she wouldn't come on the show. She's not going to come on the show. But she's still got plenty to say about the pair of us.
Yeah.
She's completely obsessed.
She's obsessed, but I also think I think she's paid. Some of them get paid a pittance. They get paid like about $200 a month to troll. It's like an old-fashioned version of informants, only online.
When do you go to Lucian Greaves's Satan website?
Shall I look that up?
I linked through to it from James Hind's website. Not website, Facebook page. When you go to Lucian Greaves' Facebook page, not Lucian Greaves, but the Temple of Satan Facebook page.
Right, the Satanic Table, at Satanic Psalms, Twitter, unmasking Lucian Greaves, leader of the Satanic Temple, rather.
I will tell you, they use biblical psalms.
Unmasking Lucian Greaves. Lucian Greaves of the Satanic Temple first showed up at my door over a decade ago. He wanted a copy of a book I'd republished called Might is Right. It was a 100-year-old tomb, long forgotten by most, with the exception of Anton LaVey.
Anton LaVey was a fraud.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Doug Mean, a photo by Shane, blah, blah, blah. Lucian Greaves. Da, da, da. Anyway, so there's stuff people exposing professional alien abduction, da da da, false memory, which is obviously oh dear. Doug Mesner became an active participant.
Doug Mesner is suspected to be Lucian Greaves.
Okay, became an active participant in the Satanic Temple to further his work of philosophy. And below is the exclusive interview I recently conducted with him. Oh dear, oh dear. All right, well, I'm a bit bored with all that stuff, but so there's plenty of stuff out there about this Lucian Greaves one, and you think he might be who?
What is somebody else has said is that Doug Mesner is Lucian Greaves. I don't know if that's true or not. But
yeah, it says that in Wikipedia.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, Lucian Greaves, also known as Douglas Mesner, is a social activist and the spokesman, co-founder of the Satanic Temple. Prior to the founding of the Satanic Temple in 2012, Greaves studied neuroscience at Harvard University. Well, that's a cesspit. It was established as a vehicle to facilitate civic and political activism.
Yes, because this is what the 9 Angles was formed for.
Yes, well,
The 9 Angles didn't practice magic with a K.
No, maybe not. The mission is to encourage benevolence and empathy among all people that reject tyrannical authority. This is rubbish. This doesn't sound like...
No, basically what they are is anarchists. They're the type of people that run around on May Day pushing bins through Peter Jones' window and that kind of thing. This is the type of people these are.
Pink mass, blah, blah, blah. Right, so anybody that's interested in that stuff, there's plenty of it. So what did you find? Did you find anything else by going through James Hind's Facebook?
Oh, I found it very interesting looking down the... I found the Temple of Satan's link because it would seem that James Hind is the friend of Lucian Greaves.
Okay, so we've got Lucian Greaves, who's Douglas Mesner.
Well, Lucian Greaves is supposed to be Just Insanity, who blogs on CACHES.
Oh, okay. And Douglas Mesner, all right.
So they clearly know each other. He's supposed to have another name, Doug Misicko. Misicko.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. If he's really Doug Mesner, it makes sense to use that fake. What's that other fake name, Doug? How do you spell the last name?
Misicko, Misicko.
Mystico. Yeah, very close to Mesner, yeah. Okay, that's more good information. That's great. I was involved, well, I wasn't involved. I was kind of sucked into something around 1983. There was a group of anarchists in London that used to do these protests called Stop the City. And I was singing in a band and in Brixton, well, in London, all around London actually, and other places. But we did a gig in the George Canning, and this German musician whose stage name was Gypsy, kind of, with hindsight, targeted me, but at the time I thought he chatted me up and we fell in love and we ended up getting engaged and living together, and he came back to Ireland, met my family and all the rest of it. But he was involved with an anarchist group in London, and it was called Stop the City, and I used to say, no, it's not my thing, I'll just stay home, you go run along and do it, you know. But they used to do things like go to the City of London and try and bring it to a standstill one day a year, and they were anarchists. You know, the purest meaning of anarchy is to not require government. So,
well, that is
in its purest form, it's a good thing.
Well, this is what they want. They want no government. They want themselves in charge. You should see some of the things that are on the Temple of Satan's actual Facebook page. That's quite nasty.
Yeah, well, they are. This is why that Wikipedia thing saying, oh, they're social activists, and no, they're not.
They call themselves social justice activists. They call themselves.
Well, so do Hillary Clinton's crowd and George Soros's crowd, and they're far from just or sociable or social.
The books that I procured, though, from their bookshop that they weren't allowed to have because they weren't paying business rates, and the Folkestone Council did not know they had this bookshop. I mean, for one book, it was £29.95 for one paperback book. And this was back in 1991.
Wow.
So I went to their bookshop. Firstly, the William tried to mix himself up with me, and I didn't want anything to do with this William. So he got the Pamela to try and mix him up with me, and this didn't work. And then he spread a load of rubbish about me. He told me, I'll expose you. I said, expose me as what? He said, a witch, you're a witch. I said, am I? Samantha. He said, you're I wish you were the real McCoy. I know about you. Oh, he was loopy. But he was on some sort of drugs, because they all are. They all take psychedelics.
Yeah.
He's on some drugs. And for some reason, he thought I was a witch.
Well, they accused me of casting spells against Ricky Dearman, and all I did was say some prayers from the Bible, and something pretty horrific must have happened, because they then got my Facebook. They reported me for casting spells online.
Well, you're allowed to cast spells. Facebook doesn't say you're not allowed to. There is spell casting Facebook pages.
Well, you know,
Wiccans have them. You're allowed to do it.
Well, Facebook, they admitted they get 12 reports a day, 12 reports on every post I make, in the hopes that something will stick. So, for instance, the 30-day ban I got on my main Facebook profile was for posting the phone number where Arthur could be contacted, and saying that I was very concerned for him, and would people please both contact the hospital, email the hospital. And
how does that go against Facebook's rules?
Pardon? I don't know, because Arthur got on Facebook about a week later and he said the exact same thing as well. He said, "This is my phone number, please ring off the hook and protest at my incarceration against my will." You know, so it's just, who knows? It's, you know.
Well, they weren't, look, they're very mouthy and very powerful when they're running around in little short shaved heads to toes.
And when they're anonymous.
Yes. And when they're hiding in a bookshop in Folkestone, where the bookshop wasn't supposed to be there, they had a big bookshop, the whole sort of first floor of the big Victorian house.
Wow.
And they had an IT suite in a room at the back. And
probably for distributing porn.
No, they were just, I know what they were distributing, because I stole some of it, procured it. I put it in my bag as my son was running around pressing the cash registers. I was picking the books up and putting them in my bag. So it caused havoc. There was only one person there, this man. Well, firstly, they started sending me chain letters. And I thought, who is doing this? 10 chain letters a day. You have to forward this letter to 25 people, or else this will happen to you. You'll all die, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, who the hell is doing this to me? And then it was pamphlets with amulets. Buy our amulets. If you don't buy our amulets, you'll die. And I thought, like I told you, you'll fucking die. Then they got my phone number, and they were phoning me up all hours of the night. And I was having very weird phone calls during the day telling me, who do you think you are? I said, who do you think you are? What are you phoning me up for? Who are you anyway? Who do you think you are that you don't want to talk to us? I said, and who are you? What are you on about? We can destroy people's lives through the courts. We can drag you through the courts. These were the threats I was getting.
Yeah.
So,
Satan's job description is to steal, kill, and destroy. And as the children of Satan, that's what they think their job description is. But what they don't realize is that Satan and his minions, his demons, his entities, his whatever, they have no loyalty to the Satanists. They are just weapons. They are just pawns. They're just stupid tools who do the work of Satan, Lucifer, thinking, oh, but I've got great power from it, and I get visions, and I frightened a lot of people. They don't realise what they're trading.
That's what Pamela thought. She thought she got great power, and then she ended up carted off.
Yeah, but not even getting carted off in this lifetime is not the worst of it. What they're condemning themselves to is an eternity of hell, and that's the truth.
I didn't see any Satan stopping me from stealing their books or stopping my son from running around fiddling with their cash registers. The man couldn't.
Because they were operating illegally, and so they stood to go to court,
But they got into a lot of trouble. Their bookshop was shut down, and now they still operate, but they only operate via newspaper advertisements, just with a postcode on it. They've got a special postcode where you just put their name and this postcode, and they receive all the stuff. So they've actually got a special postcode with no street name on it. Well,
I promise you they're doing more than distributing chain letters and amulets. They for the most part, distribute child pornography, and they do distribute satanic works and books and meetings and spells what happened.
Yeah, I know about all about their spells and stuff, because one of the books I stole was called The Master Grimoire, and in the first page of the preface of the Master Grimoire, it says, "People think us Satanists kill Vestal virgins and children. Oh, we laugh at that because we can find much more entertaining things to do to innocent creatures." This is what was written.
Yeah.
So I went complaining to the UK censor. I actually went to William McRae.
I would be inclined to rephrase it. I would not say you stole things. I would say
I procured them.
You confiscated.
I confiscated their stuff. I went to their place.
That's far more accurate. You confiscated their contraband. You know? Well,
they were hard. They weren't. The guy wasn't going to. When we arrived at the door, they knew who we were. They had. It was down near the seafront in Folkestone, and they had a great big steel door which opened outwards, which usually drug dealers have got that so the police can't kick the door in.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. They're not just hiding naughty books. They're really not, you know. But anyway, not to dwell too much on that. I spoke to Charlotte Ward, and she thinks that she also has a not very good opinion of Chris Costa, and she thinks that Chris Costa has possibly sowed the disinfo that she is or was the model Bridget York that lives in France, because...
Is she not the person?
No, and she said that's a framing attempt. She said, you know, if you squint and like, you know...
Well, she looks like her a lot.
Yeah, no, that's quite clever. There's people that look like people all over the place. Like, there's a woman in America called Angie or something else, and she contacted me and said, "Oh, I'm your doppelganger. I'm your doppelganger. Look how alike we look." And I can see a little resemblance, but not hugely. But in this day and age of the internet, it's not hard to find people that look like people. So she said it's a setup, probably at the hands of Chris Costa. And she said,
quite famously, there was a big newspaper drive. Somebody turned around and said Stan Laurel, you know, from Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
That Stan Laurel was Clint Eastwood's father. And they look alike. They look very alike. And all the newspapers were all secret revealed. Stan Laurel's secret son, Clint Eastwood. But actually, Clint Eastwood's mother had never been in the same town as Stan Laurel.
Well, you never know, but I mean, Chris Spivey has that facial recognition software. Not facial recognition, but Chris Spivey does a lot of work of putting up photos of people, and this one's this one, and that one's their father, and so on and so forth. And, you know, as facial recognition software gets more sophisticated, you know, probably there will be no secrets, but I don't always buy them. And Charlotte just laughed and said, "No, that's a smear tactic."
Because Bridget York still lives in France.
Yeah, well, Charlotte lives in Suriname, so it's not. In fact, I think
it can't be the same person, can they?
No, it's not. And she just said it's another tactic to try and smear my name. And
well, I think that Chris Costa is right about this.
She might be right on the... See, this is the skill, and I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm on the fence about Chris. I'm definitely very averse to Sonia and Shiva, but I'm on the fence about Chris. But you see, you never know who's feeding who disinfo, and you can have somebody giving 70% truth and 30% disinfo, and they can still really put a cat among the pigeons. And being convincing is because you're giving the 70% accurate information, then, you know, people will believe the other 30% of disinfo.
Well, Shira Blurtout is firmly in the side of the Satanists, because they're all, she's our friend, she's our friend.
No, she's for somebody calling themselves a survivor, you know, if you know, and many Satanists are survivors. That's how come they've gone the dark path. So if she is a survivor, you know, some survivors go on to be abusers, whether cyber abusers or whatever, but they go on to the dark side. And clearly that's what's happened with her, you know.
Well, she was getting on my nerves with her commentary about me, and then I just thought, well, she's irrelevant.
Yeah. Let's take a little break, because I want to pull up. I know she was posting stuff about she'd reported my YouTube, she was getting it taken down, all the rest of it. I don't think I've had even a notification. I know she posted up her report. I don't know.
Oh yeah, she posted up. She reported one of our videos.
Yeah.
I think video 1 she reported.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think they're going to take it down because they allow fair comments, and we can say what we like about it.
I don't think I've even had so much as a notification, but I will check. And the other thing I want to read is a couple of chapters. Some friends of mine are going to be publishing a book in a month about hidden technology, and they've written a couple of chapters about malicious criminal cyber crimes. So I'm going to pull that up. So let's take a 5-minute break. If our connection drops, I'll just send you another Facebook message, and then I'll send you another Zoom link.
Okay.
So just 5 minutes while I get something up on the screen.